When did the oceans become zones of extreme danger? In one of our channel's most famous videos, we explored true extreme thalassophobia by diving into the most dangerous ocean that ever existed, the Western Interior Seaway. This aquatic battlefield dominated the landscape during the Cretaceous and parts of the Eocene. It was a realm where creatures like Thalassophobia and Ziphichtinus turned the waters into a stage of absolute terror. But how did it all begin? Where did the first great predators, the ones that initiated this relentless evolutionary arms race, come from? To find those answers, we must travel even further back in time, to the Cambrian period, over 500 million years ago. Imagine plunging into a prehistoric ocean where the water is as clear as glass and tiny creatures float peacefully with no predators lurking. It was almost a utopia, an underwater Eden where the greatest challenge was finding food, not avoiding becoming someone else's meal. Welcome to the Cambrian, an era where the oceans were a blank canvas and evolution was just beginning to sketch its first masterpieces. Trilobites, sponges, and other primitive inhabitants dominated the seas, creating an ecosystem that resembled a garden more than a battlefield. But this tranquility wasn't destined to last forever. Over time, something extraordinary happened. The first predators emerged. Creatures like Anomalocaris, with its alien-like appearance and circular jaws, revolutionized Cambrian marine ecosystems. Later, in the Devonian period, titans such as Dunkleosteus arose to claim their place as the undisputed kings of the oceans. These events marked the beginning of an evolutionary arms race. Claws, teeth, armor, and hunting strategies transformed marine life dynamics forever. What was once a peaceful underwater paradise became a predator's kingdom where only the fittest survived. Today, we'll explore this fascinating chapter in Earth's history, the birth of the first great marine predators and how this radical shift shaped the dangerous oceans of later epochs. Let's start with the Cambrian oceans, where one of the first true pioneers of predation emerged, Anomalocaris, often considered by scientists to be the first aquatic apex predator. With its segmented body, a pair of claw-like appendages for grabbing prey, coin-sized compound eyes, and a circular mouth lined with toothed plates, this predator earned its title as the king of its time. But curiously, Anomalocaris wasn't quite the nightmare you might imagine. While it excelled in its environment, the Cambrian was still a soft world filled with mostly small, soft-bodied creatures. Compared to the fearsome marine beasts that would emerge later, Anomalocaris was more of an evolutionary draft than a masterpiece. Nevertheless, its appearance marked a turning point. The oceans would never be the same. Fast forward to the Devonian period, known as the Age of Fishes, and the oceans transformed into full-fledged battlegrounds. During this time, the seas saw an explosion of complex marine life and some of the most fearsome predators in history. Leading the charge was Dunkleosteus, a massive armored fish that could haunt anyone's nightmares. Growing up to over 8 meters long, its jaws didn't have teeth as we know them, but instead featured razor-sharp bony plates capable of slicing through prey like giant scissors. A single bite could cleave almost any creature unlucky enough to cross its path. Meanwhile, the first sharks began to diversify, honing hunting skills that would make them supreme ocean predators in the millennia to come. Creatures like the coelacanth and other coastal dwellers also evolved to fill increasingly competitive niches, adapting with strategies for both attack and defense. What made the Devonian seas so dangerous? The key lay in coastal zones. These nutrient-rich and biodiverse regions were magnets for marine life. But with abundance came fierce competition. Hunt or be hunted. This evolutionary pressure triggered a biological arms race, giving rise to increasingly sophisticated and lethal predators. Thus, while Anomalocaris paved the way in the Cambrian, the true aquatic nightmares were born in the Devonian, when oceans shifted from relatively tranquil territories to full-blown kingdoms of relentless hunters. The configuration of continents during this era was as peculiar as the oceans themselves. At the equator, instead of Africa, there was Euramerica, a continent composed of what is now Europe and North America, entirely surrounded by oceans and smaller islands. To the north lay Siberia and Kazakhstan, also as isolated landmasses. To the east, the North and South China continents were separated from each other. And to the south was Gondwana, the largest landmass of the time, made up of what we now recognize as Africa, South America, Australia, India, Arabia, and Antarctica. The seas and oceans surrounding these landmasses were filled with creatures capable of inducing sheer panic. Certain areas stood out as particularly dangerous due to the emergence of the first jawed fish. While these giant fish first appeared in the Silurian, it was during the Devonian that they diversified and evolved into fearsome predators. The Devonian introduced us to one of the first truly iconic marine predators, Dunkleosteus, an armored fish reaching up to 10 meters in length with jaws capable of crushing bones with extraordinary force. This giant was part of a group of placoderms, armored fish, that emerged at the start of the Devonian and quickly dominated most aquatic ecosystems. These fish not only became the top predators of their time, but were also equipped with hunting tools that made them both lethal and legendary. Dunkleosteus stands out as the largest and most fearsome of these creatures, often referred to as the Earth's first sea monster. This multi-ton predator could hunt virtually anything, anywhere. While it preferred shallow coastal waters, it also ventured into the open oceans, inhabiting areas that correspond to present-day North America, Europe, and Africa. Avoiding this creature was nearly impossible, an unfortunate reality since it could be described as a great white shark in its most terrifying form. It had a robust, muscular body and an exceptionally durable armor made of dermal bone, which covered its skull and the front portion of its torso. This made it a nearly invulnerable foe. However, determining its exact size remains a challenge, as most fossils found are skull fragments. Length estimates range widely from 4.1 meters to 10 meters. Current, more reliable projections place its size at around 5 meters, comparable to a modern great white shark. But due to its stocky build, even the smallest Dunkleosteus specimens would have weighed over 2 tons, surpassing the weight of the largest recorded great white sharks. It's also possible that even larger individuals existed, given the scarcity of complete fossils. And while a smaller size might seem less intimidating, it actually made Dunkleosteus an even greater threat to human-sized prey, as something of our dimensions would have been a perfect bite-sized snack. Dunkleosteus was equipped with one of the most powerful bites ever recorded. Instead of teeth, its jaws featured enormous, razor-sharp bony plates capable of generating devastating pressure. When closing its mouth, these plates could exert a force of up to 80,000 pounds per square inch, psi, surpassing the bite force of any living or extinct fish, and even exceeding the impact of a .50 caliber bullet. This immense power, combined with the sharp pseudo-teeth of its maws, allowed it to slice through bones and armored prey as if they were warm butter. And if that wasn't terrifying enough, its jaw-opening mechanism made it even deadlier. The Dunkleosteus utilized a mechanism known as the 4-bar linkage to open its jaws, a system similar to the mechanical pumps used in oil extraction. This ingenious adaptation allowed it to open its mouth with incredible speed, reaching full extension in just 20 to 60 milliseconds, twice as fast as a human blink. This rapid movement not only made escaping its bite nearly impossible, but also created a suction effect. Every time the Dunkleosteus opened its mouth, the water in front of it was pulled inward, drawing in any unlucky prey nearby. This ensured that its bite was clean, devastating, and almost always fatal. The terrifying power of its bite has been demonstrated by fossil evidence, including remains of other prehistoric creatures, some of them other Dunkleosteus specimens bearing severe bite marks attributed to this species. These findings highlight not only the effectiveness of its jaws against large prey, but also that even members of its own species weren't safe from its attacks. The Dunkleosteus wasn't just the first sea monster in history, it remains one of the most fascinating and deadly creatures to ever inhabit the oceans. Its predatory skills, size, and speed make it a perfect example of just how terrifying prehistoric waters could be. While the Dunkleosteus is the best-known placoderm of the Devonian, it wasn't the only terror in the seas of its time. The period was rife with other members of the superfamily to which Dunkleosteus belonged, many of which were large enough to rip human limbs off in a single bite. Some of these creatures would likely have considered a human to be a tasty snack. Among these relatives were species like Eismanosteus and Cocostus, smaller Dunkleosteus-like creatures about the size of a bull shark, which lived in the waters of what is now Australia. This family of armored fish achieved a near-global distribution and thrived throughout the Devonian period. No matter when or where you found yourself, there was almost always an overpowered, Pac-Man-like aquatic predator lurking nearby. Surprisingly, there was a placoderm even larger than the Dunkleosteus in terms of length. Heterosteus. This aquatic titan inhabited what are now Europe and Greenland. Though it bore little resemblance to its famous relative, it shared a common ancestor. In fact, its appearance was more akin to that of a modern whale shark, likely due to convergent evolution. Heterosteus may have been a planktivore, feeding on plankton, which allowed it to grow to colossal sizes. One species, Heterosteus asmus, is estimated to have reached lengths of up to 6 meters, comparable to an orca. However, some paleontologists suggest this giant might have been an ambush predator, using its flat body to hide on the ocean floor and strike unsuspecting prey, similar to the modern stargazer fish. Even if it was a gentle giant, encountering one of these creatures while swimming would have been a terrifying experience, given its massive and bizarre appearance. In addition to Heterosteus, another remarkable member of the placoderm group was Titanichthys. Although it resembled Dunkleosteus more closely than Heterosteus, this giant belonged to a different superfamily, the Arthrodyra. Titanichthys was a harmless filter feeder, using a small toothless mouth to feed on tiny fish and suspended particles. Yet, swimming near this colossal creature, up to 7.6 meters long, would have been heart-stopping given its size and prominent fins, which gave it the silhouette of a shark. This immense size would have made Titanichthys the largest fish in the world at the time. However, while it posed no threat, the rest of its family wasn't as friendly. Some of its relatives, such as Bungartius and Dinichthys, were smaller versions of Dunkleosteus, measuring over 3 meters in length. These powerful predators, with strong jaws and sharp teeth, were fully capable of wreaking havoc on their prey. Another terrifying predator that inhabited the seas at the time was Bungartius. Its design included a spear integrated into the tip of its mouth, making it even more intimidating and lethal. This unique feature turned it into a specialized predator capable of easily piercing its prey. With all these titans swimming in the seas, it's no wonder the Devonian earned the title of the Age of Fishes. The combination of Dunkleosteus and its relatives formed an ecosystem where any creature sharing the waters had to face an unprecedented level of danger. For anyone suffering from thalassophobia, these prehistoric seas would have been their worst nightmare. The Devonian, known as the Age of Fishes, not only gave rise to iconic creatures like Dunkleosteus, but also to other equally unsettling aquatic predators that often go unnoticed. A prominent group of these primitive fish were the Onychodontiformes, an order of bony fish with lobed fins that not only achieved a global distribution but also stood out as some of the most lethal hunters of their time. These fish, descended from one of the earliest divergent lineages of coelacanths, had an anatomy that was particularly deadly. Their skulls and jaws were flexible and kinetic, which was unusual for the time. They were composed of loose bones that, in some cases, weren't even fully connected to each other. This peculiarity allowed them to strike at great speed without risking fractures to their skulls and enabled them to swallow prey much larger than what other similar predators could handle. Among the Onychodontiformes, the largest and most fearsome was Onychodus. This fish, the largest of its order, was also the largest bony fish of the Middle Devonian. Measuring up to 4 meters in length and weighing over 160 kilos, it rivaled the size of a modern lion. Its cosmopolitan range meant that it could be found in both deep and shallow waters, lurking for any unsuspecting prey. Paleontologists believe Onychodus was an extremely stealthy predator. Its strong front fins would have allowed it to glide slowly along reefs or slip beneath its victims before launching a devastating attack with its powerful tail, causing massive damage. In some cases, it would simply swallow its prey whole in a single gulp. This is not just a hypothesis. A fossil specimen shows that Onychodus ingested a fish that was nearly half its length. What made Onychodus even more terrifying were its teeth. These fish had a mouthful of needle-like teeth that could easily pierce flesh. However, their most distinctive feature was their spear-shaped front fangs, which could retract and move freely. This allowed them to use these fangs to stab and tear apart their prey, making Onychodus a predator with a lethal and unique arsenal for its time. Another group of unsettling predators that roamed the Devonian were the Cladocelochidae, a species of shark-like fish. Though they were cartilaginous fish and their appearance resembled that of modern sharks, they were not true sharks. In fact, they were more closely related to chimeras, often called ghost sharks. Unlike other Devonian groups, the Cladodocelacidae had a more limited distribution, with fossils found only in Morocco and North America. However, despite their restricted range, this group is surprisingly well documented thanks to exceptional fossils that have preserved soft tissues like skin, muscle fibers, and even internal organs. These fossils reveal that the Cladocelacidae were about the size of a reef shark. Their heads resembled those of eel sharks, while their bodies were more similar to mackerel sharks, suggesting that they were agile and fast swimmers. Evidence of stomach contents indicates that these fish hunted a wide variety of prey, including ray-finned bony fish, conodonts, hagfish, and arthropods. Furthermore, it is known that they often devoured their prey starting from the tail. The Cladocelacidae used their three-pronged teeth to firmly grasp their victims, which they could shake violently until killing them or swallow them whole. Additionally, they were one of the first vertebrates to develop a tooth replacement system, allowing them to keep their jaws sharp and attack without worrying about losing teeth. Between the onychodontiforms, the Cladocelacidae, the Dunkleosteus, and its imitators, the Devonian became a kingdom ruled by fish. This period not only marked the peak of aquatic biodiversity, but also a zenith in predatory adaptations. In a world dominated by creatures armed with kinetic jaws, retractable teeth, and propelling tails, safety in the water was virtually non-existent. The Devonian was not only dominated by terrifying fish, but also by equally unsettling aquatic creatures, the marine scorpions, or eurypterids. Although they shared certain superficial similarities with modern scorpions, these arthropods were not true scorpions. In fact, their closest living relatives are horseshoe crabs. Despite this, the eurypterids possessed anatomical features similar to modern scorpions, such as segmented bodies, articulated appendages, and in some genera, structures at the end of their tails that could have functioned as venomous stingers. A clear example is Eurypterus, a genus that reached 0.8 meters in length and whose sting likely inflicted unpleasant wounds, though not deadly to humans. If you were lucky enough to encounter only this small one. As the Devonian progressed, the Eurypterids not only diversified, but also grew significantly. From a single genus that represented 90% of the known fossil remains, they expanded into more than 100 distinct genera, occupying various ecological niches. While some fed on tiny prey in shallow estuaries, others preferred reefs, where they hunted larger animals. Among the most impressive was Terrestrial, a colossus that inhabited closed coastal waters and was the apex predator of its environment. This monster could exceed 2.5 meters in length, placing it among the largest arthropods to have ever existed. Some individuals could weigh as much as an adult reindeer, and their appearance, similar to that of a giant scorpion, was enough to terrorize any living being. Eurypterids. Jackalopterus did not have a sting, but its powerful tail allowed it to swim at great speeds and perform devastating ambushes. For hunting, it relied on its enormous pincers, which could reach 1 meter in length. These pincers were not only incredibly strong, but also adorned with sharp protrusions that allowed them to grasp and pierce their prey with ease. Fossilized remains of a fish found with deep puncture marks matching the pincers of Jackalopterus confirm that this method was lethal and effective. Though Jackalopterus is the most well-known, it was not the only eurypterid with unique hunting skills. Some genera possessed knife or sword-like stingers capable of stabbing and tearing apart their victims. Others use broad arms to collect prey or specialized appendages to filter small organisms from the substrate. Curiously, this last method, though less spectacular, was adopted by the largest known eurypterid, Hibbertopterus. While it was comparable in size to Jackalopterus, its broader and heavier body gave it a considerably greater mass, possibly rivaling the weight of a large cow. Despite its imposing appearance, it is unclear whether these giants were open water, pelagic dwellers, or preferred freshwater environments. The diversity and adaptations of marine scorpions made them a dominant force in the aquatic ecosystems of the Devonian. From swift ambushes to calmer filtration techniques, these arthropods proved to be both efficient predators and gatherers. Their colossal size and varied hunting methods made them creatures that no one would have wanted to encounter in prehistoric waters. The Devonian was not only a period of oceans dominated by terrifying creatures, but also the time when rivers and lakes became areas that you should avoid at all costs. During this era, the first river monsters emerged on Earth, and among them, the undisputed kings were the Tristicopteridae. The Tristicopteridae were a diverse and successful group of tetrapod-like fish that inhabited virtually all large lakes and rivers of the Devonian. They were characterized by possessing strong fin skeletons, aerodynamic bodies, deep front fins, and proportionally large teeth. This group included species of all shapes and sizes. Some were small and not very threatening, comparable to a ruler, while others, like the genus Hyneria, could grow to the size of the largest recorded bull sharks. To put this in perspective, bull sharks are known to be capable of attacking and killing large animals, including humans. However, despite their similar size, Hyneria did not have jaws like a shark. Instead, it had straight conical teeth 5 centimeters long, twice the size of a bull shark's teeth. These giant needles were perfect for holding on to prey, even in the murky, vegetation-filled waters. Hyneria fossils are typically found in areas associated with large amounts of debris and fallen trees, suggesting it preferred low-visibility environments. To hunt in these conditions, the Tristicopteridae developed enlarged sensory canals that allowed them to detect prey in total darkness. So, even if you fell into a river completely dark to your eyes, it was very likely that something was already following you. Even worse, some paleontologists suggest that the Tristicopteridae could use their strong fins to propel themselves out of the water and catch prey on the shore. This made even areas near rivers dangerous places. Another aquatic threat of the Devonian were the Elpistostigalia, a group of freshwater animals that seemed like a strange combination of fish and tetrapods. Some of them, like the famous Tiktaalik, are nicknamed fishopods due to their blend of fish and tetrapod characteristics. Tiktaalik not only had gills, scales, and fins, but also functional wrists, a neck, lungs, and ribs. Its anatomy suggests it lived in shallow waters where it could use its fins and wrists to move along the bottom and cross mud banks, similar to modern mudskippers. This means that although it spent most of its life in the water, it was also capable of hunting on land. And if you thought Tiktaalik was small, you were wrong. This fishapod could grow up to 3 meters long, making it a formidable predator with likely no natural enemies. Its elongated, robust skull gave it a terrifying appearance, but it was not the only giant in its group. Its close relative, Pandorictis, could reach lengths greater than the average NFL player, and its wide, compact skull made it even more intimidating. Something in the waters of the Devonian seemed to foster the evolution of highly specialized predators. From the leaping Tristicopteridae to the giant fishopods, rivers and lakes were a deadly hunting ground. These early river monsters not only dominated their environment, but also marked the beginning of the transition from aquatic to terrestrial life. During the Devonian, not only were the oceans undergoing enormous changes, but the terrestrial areas were also experiencing a remarkable transformation. And when I say green, I mean it intentionally, as this was the period in which the first known trees and plants in general underwent a massive radiation and diversification, leading to what could be called the greening of the continents. It was probably the first time in Earth's history that, from space, the lands appeared green, at least in certain areas. This explosion of flora not only transformed the landscape, but also triggered an increase in terrestrial animals, such as mites, scorpions, millipedes, the arachnid Trigonopteridos, and the first tetrapods like Acanthostega. However, the largest form of life on land was not an animal, but an enigmatic terrestrial fungus called Prototaxites, which formed large trunk-like structures and could grow up to 8 meters tall, far taller than anything else on land at the time. Due to its abundance, it would have given Earth the appearance of having spikes everywhere. The Devonian was undoubtedly one of those moments when everything seemed strange and bizarre, while the waters were truly terrifying. And maybe that's why Mother Nature decided to neutralize the fear of the sea a little, figuratively speaking. At the end of this period came the late Devonian extinction, a catastrophic event that marked the end of an era and primarily affected the oceans. The late Devonian extinction was not a unique sudden event, but a series of catastrophes that began around 372 million years ago. These events shook the oceans in ways that we are only beginning to understand today. It was as if nature had pressed the reset button on marine ecosystems, leaving a devastating landscape behind. The impact was brutal. Around 50% of all marine species vanished forever. Armored giants like Dunkleosteus which had reigned as true titans of the seas, and entire groups like the Tristicopteridae were erased from the map. However, not all succumbed. Some species managed to survive, and others seized the opportunity to diversify and dominate the new seas. What caused this mass extinction? Scientists still don't have a definitive answer, but theories abound. Volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, the spread of terrestrial plants altering marine ecosystems, continental wear, and even a possible supernova that could have bombarded Earth with cosmic radiation. It is likely that it was a combination of these factors, a domino effect on a planetary scale. But what's curious is that after this event, the oceans became a little safer, at least for a while. Without the enormous predators of the Devonian, the seas calmed, leaving space for new creatures to evolve and take over. The Devonian marked a turning point in the history of life on Earth, a period of drastic transformation and unexpected opportunities. Although its end was tinged with destruction, it planted the seeds for what was to come. New eras filled with life, evolutionary innovation, and, of course, more challenges to overcome. This is how nature always finds a way to continue, even after the greatest adversities.